Keegan and at the Keegan jail. And he's got me involved in some other things that he's involved with, and it's been a lot of fun. I do not know anything about his presentation other than the fact that it is entitled, Hello, Perfect Condition. So help me welcome Mr. Jim Price, Perfect Condition.
This is a story about a friend of mine called Harry. I've known Harry for many years, over 35 years. Harry's always been a fun guy. I've always enjoyed his company. But he's always had a very interesting time with the ladies. Frequently he'll take one out, he'll have a good time, then he'll switch one. And at one point, he was taking out two ladies in the same office. Now that ended up being a more interesting situation than he ever thought it would be. But that's what he was doing. All this time, I was kind of married and looking at him, and he was having what you might call a good time. But it always ended up in not being such a good time. Because what he usually ended up doing is he'd finally end up taking somebody out for a fairly long period of time, but then he would always have lunch with some of the people he'd taken out in the past. Now, as you can imagine, that did not go down too well with the one he was taking out in the present. In fact, I got a call one night a few years ago at 2 o'clock in the morning saying, I came home and found all my stuff out in the middle of the street. Because she found out I had lunch with somebody else. So this went on for many years. He and I had another mutual friend named George. And he knew George, again, for many years. They were good buddies. They went out and had a few drinks once in a while. George Wood was what you might call, in some ways, from the outside, something of a perfect person. He put himself through college. He'd become a lawyer. He had a beautiful family, 3 kids, grown kids, one of whom had just become a doctor. He had 2 houses, one in the city and one in the country. This is all true, absolutely true. He and his wife had always had a little bit of a bouncy time. But George and Mary were good friends with my friend Harry and his then girlfriend. He'd been taken out for about 3 years, Lynn. So one Friday night, they went out to dinner together. And they had a really good night. It was a nice dinner. And my friend Harry took George to his house where he was, and Mary to a fun apartment because at the time she was living out of the house. And the following morning, his daughter, the doctor, woke up about 9 o'clock, went out to the garage to get her car, and found her father hanging in the garage.
Oh.
Now, George was gone. At this point, about 2 days later, I called my friend Harry and said casually, "How are you?" He couldn't hardly talk. I mean, he was shaken to the core, like he'd never been in his life. Because the thought that he had in his head was, I spent the whole Friday night, of course, why didn't I see this? What could I have done? The normal things that a lot of us would think. But of course, he'd been the friend of George for many, many years, the best friend. They'd been out many times, had an awfully good time. He'd watched him come up to the legal position from nothing. And here the next morning, he went out and hanged himself. So 2 days after that, he had to be pallbearer at the funeral, and I went to the funeral. And my friend Harry is just barely able to walk as a pallbearer. I mean, he is just absolutely shaken to the core. And you would say that that is, if anything, imperfect conditions. But what happened after that? What happened to my friend Harry is he lost his complete cover. He could no longer be that person that stood off from relationships because he needed Mary so much to be there. He was so shaken he had to do something about it. And her mother and the parents lived in Ireland. So he took a month off, flew to Ireland, and within 3 weeks was married. This is a true story, absolutely true. He then came back, and they had a pretty good gathering in the city that they were living in, which isn't Houston, and got remarried with all of their friends. reasonably okay. A couple people say I look fine. Just finished my 38th cancer treatment yesterday, which finished the total of the treatments that I need. I'll find out within 6 months whether I'm okay or not. So what I look like and what I am are quite different things. And the point I'm making is, and this is the point that was made in the very beginning of this meeting, perfect conditions are subjective. We keep trying to find in our lives perfect conditions that will never exist. And the point I'm making is, life is a journey. Live it every day. Look out for the positive things. Back off with your wisdom and say, what can I get out of this? What is the perfect condition? Because out of a situation that was anything but perfect, my friend Harry found the perfect condition, which ended up in he and his wife living for the last 10 years in the best way he's ever lived in his life.